If you came home after being away for a few days and felt like something was different. If your neighbor asked too many questions about your trip. If you noticed small details out of place that no one should have known. Don't ignore it. What I'm about to reveal in the next few minutes could completely change the way you see the people around you and how you protect your sacred space. There's a pattern happening with the chosen ones right now. While you're raising your frequency, while you're stepping away from chaos to seek peace and spiritual clarity, there are people watching, and that watching isn't always innocent. Some of them are testing you, measuring your boundaries, waiting for the right moment to cross the invisible line that separates healthy curiosity from deliberate intrusion. And often, that person is closer than you think. They live on the other side of the wall. They greet you every morning. They smile while asking when you're going to travel again. Not every friendly face is innocent. Not every curiosity is casual. And chosen ones must learn to discern the difference between genuine interest and hidden intention. Because when you carry light, when you're being prepared for something greater, the energies around you react. Some people want to dim that light. Others just want to understand where it comes from. And there are those who simply can't stand to see you at peace while they live in inner conflict. Let me tell you what happened to Marina. She's a holistic therapist, lives alone in a small but cozy house, and always maintained good relationships with her neighbors. At the start of the year, she decided to go on a 5-day spiritual retreat in another city. She told only a close friend, and out of politeness, she mentioned to the neighbor next door, Mrs. Clara, that she'd be away for a few days. Mrs. Clara was extremely attentive, offering to water the plants, to check if everything was okay. Marina thanked her, but said it wouldn't be necessary, that everything was already organized. When Marina returned, on her first night back, she felt something strange. She couldn't explain it. The house looked exactly as she left it, but there was a feeling in the Iran energy that wasn't the same. The next day, Mrs. Clara showed up at the door with a big smile, asking how the trip was, mentioning she'd seen the lights off every day, that she'd noticed the gate was locked in a different way, that the curtains were closed unusually. Marina felt ice run through her. How did the neighbor know so many details if she hadn't asked anyone to watch the house? Over the next few days, little things began to make sense. Mrs. Clara knew Marina had received a package during the trip, even though the parcel was inside the private area of the house, not visible from the street. She knew Marina had left a back window slightly open, something you could only see by entering the backyard, and she made comments about the alarm, saying she had never heard it go off, as if she were testing whether it really worked. Marina realized it wasn't paranoia. Someone had stepped into her property line. Someone had checked, observed, tested, and that person was acting as if it were normal, as if it were care. Curiosity can be a test. Attention can be disguised intrusion, and chosen ones need to understand that not everyone around you wishes you well, even when they smile, even when they offer help. There's a difference between the neighbor who asks if you need anything and the neighbor who wants to know exactly when you won't be home, how long you'll be gone, whether you travel alone, whether you have cameras, whether you have a dog, whether someone will stop by to check on things. Those questions aren't casual. They're strategic. They're part of a mapping, conscious or unconscious, of your space, your routine, your vulnerabilities. Think with me. Why would someone need to know if you lock the gate from the inside or the outside? Why would someone comment on the exact time your lights turn on and off? Why would someone mention they saw your sister's car parked in front of your house 3 weeks ago? That level of attention isn't normal. That level of memory about details of your private life isn't healthy. It's invasive. It's controlling. And often, it's dangerous. Have you ever stopped to think how much information you give away without realizing it? How many times do you post on social media that you're traveling? How many times do you answer honestly when someone asks if you live alone, if you work from home, if you have a security system? Chosen ones are learning now, often the hard way, that silence is protection, that not every question deserves an answer, that you owe no one anything when it comes to your privacy and your safety. Now I'm going to share Daniel's story. He works rotating shifts. Sometimes he leaves at dawn. Sometimes he gets home at dawn. He has a neighbor in the apartment next door, Rodrigo, who always seemed friendly, always greeted him, sometimes invited him for coffee. Daniel thought it was nice to have someone kind nearby, until he started noticing that Rodrigo knew too much. He knew when Daniel had traveled on the last holiday. He knew Daniel had a woman visiting the week before. He knew Daniel's intercom wasn't working properly because he tried to buzz and no one answered. One day, Daniel came home after a long shift and found a note under his door. It was from Rodrigo, saying he'd heard a strange noise coming from Daniel's apartment and had done a quick check to make sure everything was okay. That he looked through the living room window, that he tried turning the doorknob to make sure it was locked. Daniel felt a chill. Rodrigo had touched his door. He had looked inside his home. He had tested the lock. And he was writing it as if it were an act of kindness, as if Daniel should be grateful. Daniel realized he'd been naive, that he had shared too much, trusted too quickly, normalized behavior that wasn't normal. And from that day on, he changed. He stopped answering questions about his routine. He installed a discreet camera by the door. He began varying his schedule and avoiding predictable patterns. And most importantly, he began seeing Rodrigo with new eyes. And he noticed what he hadn't seen before. Rodrigo did the same thing to other neighbors. He asked too many questions. He showed up at odd moments. He knew things he shouldn't. Rodrigo wasn't friendly. Rodrigo was watching. And there's a huge difference between those two things. Discernment is protection. Intuition is a divine warning. And when you feel something is wrong, when you feel that tightness in your chest, that sense of intrusion, even if nothing physical was stolen, trust. Your spirit knows before your mind understands. Your body reacts before the facts are proven. And chosen ones are being trained right now to listen to those signals. Not to dismiss them as paranoia. Not to minimize them as overreaction. If you're watching this and you've lived through something similar, if you've felt someone cross an invisible line, type the word vigilance in the comments right now. Leave that signal so other chosen ones know they're not alone, that it's real, that it's happening. And as you type that comment, keep listening, because now comes the most important part. What to do when you realize you were tested, observed, and that someone invaded your space in some way. The first thing you need to understand is this. Reacting with anger, aggressive confrontation, or making a scene will only feed the drama and put you in a vulnerable position. People who invade boundaries want a reaction. They want to see you lose control. They want something they can use against you later, to label you as crazy, exaggerated, or difficult. Don't give them that power. Wisdom is calm firmness, clarity without emotional chaos, a boundary set without justification. When Marina realized what had happened, she didn't knock on Mrs. Clara's door screaming. She waited a day, organized her thoughts, and then had an objective conversation. She said she noticed the neighbor had information about the house that would only be possible by entering private property. She said, calmly but firmly, that she appreciated the intention to care, but she had not authorized anyone to enter her property, and that in the future, any concern should be communicated by phone, not by physical inspection. Mrs. Clara tried to justify herself, but Marina didn't open space for debate. She simply reinforced the boundary and ended the conversation politely. Daniel handled it differently. He chose not to confront directly because he sensed Rodrigo had a more unstable profile. Instead, he documented everything. He photographed the note. He installed the camera and casually mentioned to several neighbors that he now had active monitoring. He let the information reach Rodrigo indirectly, and he created distance, not being available for long conversations, being cordial but impersonal, and it worked. Rodrigo began keeping distance too, because he realized the game had changed. Now there was a record. Now there were witnesses. You need to understand that setting boundaries isn't being rude. It isn't being suspicious for no reason. It's being aware that you have the right to control who has access to your space, your information, your energy. And when someone tests those limits, you have the right and the responsibility to reinforce them. With clarity, with firmness, without guilt. Some practical steps every chosen one should consider. Never announce publicly that you're traveling before you leave. Share it only after you return. Vary your routine whenever possible so no one can map a fixed pattern. If you live alone, create the impression that someone is always home. Use timers for lights. Leave a car parked if possible. Ask someone you trust to collect the mail. Install cameras or a video doorbell, even if it's just one visible device, because its presence alone discourages a lot. And most importantly, don't share personal details with people you don't know deeply, even if they seem friendly, even if they've been a neighbor for years. But beyond physical measures, there's a spiritual dimension that cannot be ignored. When you're walking the chosen path, when you're being refined for a greater purpose, you become a target. Not necessarily of supernatural evil forces, but of distorted human energies, envy, unhealthy curiosity, the need for control, emotional voyeurism. Some people can't stand seeing you at peace and will do small things to destabilize that peace. They'll ask questions that plant doubt. They'll make comments that create insecurity. They'll subtly intrude to break your sense of safety. And your response can't be only practical. It must be spiritual too. You need to strengthen the energetic protection of your home. Pray over the corners, asking that only vibrations aligned with goodness may enter. Visualize golden light around. your home, creating an invisible but real barrier against negative intentions. And most of all, cultivate discernment. Learn to read people, not by what they say, but by the energy they carry. Learn to feel when questions come with a second motive. Learn to notice when someone is testing you. There's a third story I need to tell, and it may be the most important. Carla is a single mom with 2 small children, living in a semi-detached house. The neighbor on the other side, Mr. Ricardo, always seemed helpful, offering to carry groceries, to fix something. Carla accepted gratefully. Until one day, Mr. Ricardo commented that he'd heard the kids playing in the bedroom the night before, that they were very loud after 9 at night. Carla was confused, because the kids went to bed early, always before 8:30. How could he have heard noise after 9 if the children were asleep? She became alert, and she realized Mr. Ricardo knew things he shouldn't. He knew her older son had missed school the previous week, though she hadn't mentioned it to anyone. He knew Carla had argued on the phone with her mother, because he said he'd heard raised voices from the house. Carla understood it wasn't casual listening. It was intentional. And worse, he was making it known, as if he were marking territories. If he were saying, "I know what happens inside your home." Carla didn't wait. She went to the building management, reported what was happening, and asked for guidance. She learned it wasn't the first complaint about that neighbor. Other women had felt watched and uncomfortable. The management spoke with Mr. Ricardo, made clear there are legal limits regarding privacy, and that any invasive behavior would be taken seriously. Carla also improved sound insulation, sealed gaps, installed thicker curtains. And most importantly, she stopped accepting any help from him. She kept the relationship strictly polite but distant. The lesson is clear. Repeated unsolicited help can be a way to create dependence, to create access, to create an emotional debt that will later be collected in unexpected ways. You don't owe anyone just because they were nice once or twice. You don't need to open your home, your life, your private details to someone just because they show interest. Interest can be genuine, but it can also be strategy. And it's your job to discern. Now, if you're getting value from this, if you're recognizing patterns, if you understand this isn't paranoia but awareness, leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel, because the work here is exactly this. Waking chosen ones up to what's happening around them, to the signs being sent, to the lessons being revealed in this season of preparation. We're building a community of people who don't live in fear, but in wisdom, who don't attack, but protect, who don't isolate, but discern. And now comes the final part, the most important of all. After you set boundaries and take practical steps, you need to do spiritual clearing. You need to release the fear, the anger, the sense of violation. Because carrying those heavy emotions only attracts more of the same. You need to forgive, not in the sense of approving what was done, but in the sense of releasing the emotional weight it placed on you. Forgiveness is cutting the energetic cord that ties you to that situation, that person, that negative energy. And you need to trust. Trust that you are being guided, that you are being protected, that nothing happens by accident. Sometimes situations like this are allowed so you learn to set boundaries you never set before. So you develop strength you didn't yet have. So you activate a level of awareness that was asleep. Chosen ones are not spared from tests. They are prepared through them. So if you've been through something like this, if you're going through it, now take a deep breath. Recognize this is part of the process. Don't blame yourself for trusting. Don't blame yourself for not seeing it sooner. You saw it at the right time, and now you act. With calm, with wisdom, with firmness. You protect your space. You honor your intuition. You trust your inner strength. And now I invite you to close your eyes for a moment, if you can, and pray with me. A prayer for protection, peace, and discernment. Breathe deeply and repeat silently or out loud. Heavenly Father, source of all light and truth, I ask for protection over my home, over my sacred space, over everything that is mine. Let only energies aligned with love, peace, and goodness enter. Let every negative intention be removed, every invasive gaze be blocked, every attempt to disturb my peace be undone. Grant me discernment to recognize who comes in truth and who comes in masks. Grant me wisdom to act with firmness without losing compassion, with strength without losing serenity. Protect me, guide me, strengthen me. Let your light be a shield around me and all those I love. Let my home be a sanctuary, a refuge, a place of true peace. So it is, so it will be, so it is done. Amen. You are not alone on this journey. You're not crazy for feeling what you feel. You're awakening. And awakening means seeing what was hidden, feeling what was numb, acting where you once tolerated. Stay steady, stay alert. Keep trusting your inner light, because it never lies to you. And remember, chosen ones are not defined by what they face, but by how they respond to what they face. And you are responding with awareness, courage, and wisdom. And that is already victory. If this video touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment telling your experience, your perception, your story. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next messages, because we are only beginning to uncover the mysteries of this time of collective awakening. Peace be with you. May divine protection walk with you. And may you never doubt your intuition again. Until the next video, chosen one, stay in the light.